Hello, internet.
You like that, huh?
That is the first time I've seen that intro. I think we saw it kind of sort of before, but like, man, I
Well,
feel
the
so
first, the first,
epic.
the first time they did it, Dave will tell you. The first time we used it, Tim brought it up. Pop put it together and did a great job. But the first version, he had the names mixed up with the
I see.
faces.
I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah, and Dave's
Mine
the
was
only one
right.
that came out
right.
correct.
Boy, that music started playing. I felt all epic and heroic.
Yeah,
It seemed like
that's
very
heroic. That's totally heroic.
MCU-ish.
All right, internet. How are you? Sorry about that. I have been busy, busy. I have moved. My wife and I bought a house, and so we've just been in the last few weeks painting some more. And then this week we moved everything in. So that's been my week. Ron, how was your week?
My week has been packing, and more packing and getting caught up. I've got obviously, my own Kickstarter campaign, so I'm running around. I've done, I think, like 4 different podcasts since last Friday online, and trying to promote that. But at the same time, come the end of this week, next Monday, my wife and I are heading back east to New England to visit family and friends, and we're going to be gone for 2.5 weeks. So you guys aren't going to see me for the next 3 Tuesdays. I will be on vacation and enjoying every. I'm not taking a laptop. I'm not taking anything. You got that? I'm just going to
Oh,
sit by the beach, eat a lot of seafood, and have a quiet, nice, reflective time.
you going off grid, Ron? Completely
Yeah,
off
that's
grid?
me. Off the grid, on vacation. Yes, sir.
That's fantastic. Dave, how was your week?
Pretty uneventful. My wife worked a lot, and I spent a lot of time home and playing around with some work. So, yeah, pretty uneventful. Other than that, just work.
All righty, Brent.
Well, I've got family in town, and so I've been running all over the place. I was at Disney, I was at Epcot yesterday, which was very nice. Hadn't been there since, well, for quite a while. And, you know, I love that place. I don't go there very often, but I do love it. So anyway, it's been really busy but fun, and it's great having my family around. I don't get to see them nearly enough. So, yeah.
That is awesome. It's always good when family comes around, mostly.
Mostly.
Well, they're getting.
This is
They
not
got
your cameo
my
time.
sister's got 4 kids, ages 17 to 10, so they're going to start aging out pretty fast, and soon they
Oh,
will not
gotcha.
like me anymore. And that's fine.
Right? For like a minute, you were cool.
Yeah, I know. Yes, I'm known as the cool uncle. I'm not. I'm proud to say this, but that'll change because pretty soon they'll be thinking nobody older than them is cool at all. And they may be right. I don't know.
I for one would never let them believe that. All right. Well, let's see if I can get this screen to share. So we have the conclusion of a crowdfund for Silverline Comics for Cape Town 1 and 2. And I don't know if you've seen it yet, Brent, but
Yeah.
let's see if I can share that. Look at that. Look at that. 103%, 103%
Fully
That's awesome.
fully
Awesome.
funded.
Way to go.
Plus 3. Yeah, good job.
Yes.
I'm going to say it was all my hard work, but it really wasn't.
Yes.
I was so
Well,
busy.
thank you,
I tried
Jose.
my
I was
best.
all ready to thank you and offer you my whole cut of the thing. But if you're saying it's not you, then
Yeah, I should be a little modest about it. We're going to go ahead and say it was a shared work from everybody.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, heck yeah, that's awesome. Cat, guys, Internet, this is Saturn. Saturn, you got to stop, buddy. Okay, so I'll bring that back up in like 54 minutes. Really, guys? Really? My dude, come on. Man, amateurs.
The cat's like, I want to go where you are looking. So,
Dude, that is so. And the funny part is, last night my wife brought home Wendy's and it was super late. I was out late putting, fencing over the turkey coop so that, no animals would get in and whatnot. I was sitting on our couch and I had cat in one hand, Frosty in another, just. And the only thing that woke me up is this cat right here, Saturn, which is every time he wants attention, he'll nudge, but he nudges with force.
Ooh, ooh.
woke me up in a startle.
It is crazy how strong cats are for their proportions.
Right? Alrighty, so our topic for tonight, how to learn from reading.
How to learn making comics from comics, in other words, right?
Well, I don't think it's just that. It's how to learn from reading comics, right?
Right. Yeah.
So my first thought was, I do know growing up that there was a small little program. We had to leave the high school, or I'm sorry, not the high school. We had to leave our elementary school to go to this other building. And I thought it was because I was amazing, but clearly that wasn't it. Evidently, I had troubles reading to begin with, which is funny because like throughout high school, I read a lot. I read everything. But I guess I had trouble reading. And so we actually read comics. Like it was a lot of like, for me, it was some Batman stuff, but then it was like some of like the older like Mickey Mouse stuff and some of like the storybooks, like some of the other like real easy storybooks we used to do. So that was my first thought when I learned about the subject for tonight. It was using reading to, comics to help read, to help learn. I
think all of us agree. Those of us who started reading comics and were fans when we were kids, is that it definitely created an appetite for reading. Beyond comics. Absolutely. After a while, and also whether we liked it or not, increased our vocabulary by leaps and bounds over our peers at the same age. All right. I can remember getting to school and that was noticeable in my English classes. All right. Which is always, a help and it works to that degree. I think one of the things I found interesting about comics at the same time, and I think you guys will also remember this, there was a legal code with magazine distributions as far as putting things out in the mail. So publishers, publishing comics, if you will, all right, if you had at least one prose piece in the comic, it lowered the price of mailing it out. It actually became a magazine, a periodical, aside from just illustrated people, and the U.S. Post Office gave you a cut. So early on, DC and all the other comic publishers starting putting in what you'd call educational articles, the history of the Suez Canal, and ridiculous stuff like that. All right, just to get this discount. But what they didn't realize was they were giving us this like liberal education out of nowhere. So that I can remember, again, it's a case of, by the time you get to grade school and into high school, all this wealth of information. It's like, where the heck did this come from? Where did I pick this up? And it's like, oh yeah, that one page in the back of Batman. I remember reading that. Yeah, okay. So comics were pretty much, whether they wanted to be or not in those days, an educational tool. And again, made us, a little bit maybe brighter than our peers at that time.
I will say my first comic I ever read, my parents were still together at the time. So it was before I was 8 years old. I want to say 6 or 7. I didn't even really read it, but I noticed that I found out my dad had Conan comics underneath the bed. And so I would pull them out, and my dad lost me for like an hour. And then he came looking for me in the room and saw me over there just flipping through the books, like just looking at the art, looking at the pages, and I loved it. Fantasy comics, I mean, for the longest time, that was like everything to me, just like the idea of fantasy, anything. And that's what was spawned because of the comics that I found that my dad had.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my dad came home from World War II with an enjoyment of reading comics, and I've told this story multiple times. 1948, 49. I'm growing up in a house where on weekends, Dad would go out and run the errands while Mom was doing the house cleaning, and he'd stop at a local drugstore or whatever and hit the spinner racks and pick up a bunch of Western crime comics for himself and romance comics for Mom.
Right.
And they'd come home, have lunch, and then a Saturday afternoon, it wasn't unusual for them to sit around the radio, no TV then, right, and listen to music on the radio while both of them sat there reading comics. So, I mean, that's the atmosphere I'm brought up in, to the point where I started doing, it's like, gimme, gimme, gimme. I want one of these things, right? And Dad was a little leery at first because he thought, Ron's going to put it in his mouth and devour it, most likely, which is what all 3 or 4-year-olds do. But Mom, who had the wisdom of Solomon one Saturday, and this was like this tipping point in my life, basically told my dad, well, look, I mean, then the comics were like 10 cents a piece. And so she told him, she says, well, next Saturday, you go out and buy the comics. She said, get 2 of the same title and just give the extra one to Ron. That way, if he rips it up, destroys it, you won't
You got
buy
another one.
Right. So Dad comes home that week, and this is like this thing we laugh about, right? But to me, it's like imprinted right there. Dad literally gives me a copy of Kid Colt, Outlaw. Right? I can't read. It's a Western, though, and I'm on the floor flipping the pages looking at the pictures. So years go by, he keeps doing this to me to the point where 5, 6, I want to know what's in those balloons. I figured it out that these people are talking. It's pointing to their mouths. I get that, but what are they saying? I want to know. And after bugging my mom relentlessly, one day she sits me down at the kitchen table, goes over and gets the family dictionary, puts it in front of me, and teaches me how to use a dictionary. And then that's like, boom, I'm gone. Okay. I mean, it's reading has been such a treasure and a joy in my life to this day. I'm still a ferocious reader. My office here is surrounded by thousands of books. Most I've read. There's a few hundred I haven't yet. I'll get to them eventually, good Lord willing.
Wait, you have books in your personal library you haven't read yet? I don't know if I can say that.
Oh no. I mean, I not only buy. I'll stop at a bookstore or used bookstore. I'm drawn in like bees to honey.
Right.
And if I see a title that intrigues me, I don't care if I've got 20 I haven't read yet. I'm buying it because eventually I'll get to it.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean, I'm literally reading books that I bought 5, 6 years ago, and I'm glad I bought them because they're great books and they're fun to read. But I'm not going to pass them up. Not going to happen, It's like,
I had to be a little more selective growing up, so I had to be like, finish a book, I need to get another one. You know what I mean? Or if I knew I was getting close, I'd go pick up either the next in line in regards to like the novels I would read and stuff like that, or something that caught my attention next. But like it was always the next one. And then in the move that we just had, there's a few books I kind of had to get rid of just because they weren't in the best condition. They weren't, you know what I mean? They definitely. It was time to update them with the newer version, right? Which I will, because I have to have the whole set.
Well,
but,
I'm like you now. I'm at that point right now with this office can't take any more, and after we moved here, after we bought this particular place and moved in here, my wife and I had a good long talk, and she basically looked at me and she says, maybe it's time to divest yourself of a lot of this stuff. So I started going through it. I got some boxes and started going through some, the thing was I used to hang on to everything I bought and read.
Yep.
All right. No more now. When I finish a book, it goes in the box, and we have several used bookstores in town, and I'll just bring them there and just donate them. Just let them have them, and hopefully somebody else will get them and get some enjoyment out of them and read them. But yeah, because I mean, I've had too many friends over the years who passed away who were like minded as us, and left their spouses with offices full
Right.
of books and comics and videos and toys and whatever, right? And these poor ladies don't know what to do with this stuff, where it has to go, and whatever. And I'm thinking more and more every year about that's not what I want to leave my wife. So I'm trying to declutter as much as I can.
That's hard to do.
It is. It
That
really
is very
is.
hard to do with, with being not just comic creators. I realize, again, in the move that I just did, I realize I have, and it's not a lot. I think Roland has like way more, obviously way more, but I have like 11 long boxes and I have like 5 short boxes full of comics. And I didn't used to take care of them. So they're all covers are ripped up. But man, if I start going through it, it will take several days. 'Cause I'll start going through, oh, I remember that one. And there goes the rest of my day.
Excellent use of time.
Right.
See, I tell my wife that she's going to cash out on my comics when I pass away. She's got to work. She's got to work for it.
Right.
So.
Right. And then a lot of the novels I have, like I have a lot of the old Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms novels, but I have them when they first were printed out. So like all the artwork from like Larry Elmore or, just I say Larry Elmore because he's my favorite, but like other artists that have done like covers on them, like then if I buy them again, the cover art is different. It's not the original, and it's not the original style that cover was made out of. And that I don't have OCD, but if I did, that would drive me insane. And right now, just thinking about it does. So
I know what you mean, but it may not be the first edition. Like I think of like Lord of the Rings books and all that. I never had a lot of attachment originally to when it first launched, so I'm not one of the ones that likes particularly said, I have to have like the first edition type,
right.
Before they change the artwork and all that stuff. But for me, it's like I really liked a lot of the books that they put out, in the time frame of the 90s and stuff like that. So, getting the illustrated Hobbit book and
Right.
all that stuff, with illustrated cover, with the Gandalf with the small hat. And then I think, like you're saying, I think there's a certain degree of loss for me whenever the books get reissued with scenes from the movie and just stills
Right.
from the movie. The movie was fantastic. The whole series, all of those were fantastic. But for me, it's like looking at a cover, it loses the charm of that scribbled out, distant shot with Gandalf with the hat, not perfect hat and all that stuff. Whereas you're looking at a photo still from a movie.
So funny enough, I know exactly what you're talking about. You know what I mean? In regards to the books, I've seen some of the art, right?
Mhm.
I have, and I might lose people on Facebook and Instagram for this, but I have actually never read the books.
All right, I'm out of
it. I've skimmed them. I've done like research about them and whatnot, but I've never actually read them. Like, it's crazy.
Jose, have you read the Twilight novels?
No.
Okay, then you're still
No.
okay. I was afraid for your soul. But yeah,
There's some stuff like I've read quite a lot. For like when I was younger, like junior high, I was very much into like Anne Rice books and Stephen King. And then once I went into high school, a friend of mine introduced me to Clive Barker, which is basically like Stephen King. You know what I mean? Horror novels and whatnot. And then I don't know what happened, but like I switched to comics again because I had comics before, but I was poor and couldn't afford any. And then finally I could afford comics and growing up and then it became like the Western comics. And then when I realized that the newer Western comics, like was it Apache Skies, which was Marvel's adult or mature Western, not adult, mature Western, that made me want to back up. Like, hold up, let me back up to some of the old the old Ghost Rider books and the old gosh dang, I'm tired, guys. Sorry. A lot of the other stuff that Marvel had, and then that reminded me that I know that DC had some Western books too, and Western had some war books. Like so, then I started reading Haunted Tank, and then but it honestly for me it started off with comics and then went to novels and then back to comics and still novels. But now for novels, I do a lot of audiobook just because it's easier to multitask for me. But I do prefer, like, I still have suitcases of books, and once this house gets set up, I'm going to start putting them on shelves. It's going to be amazing, and my wife is going to look at me crazy.
It's one of the things that I've got is I was actually watching a lot of the TV show. It's fantastic, but I never actually read the books, so I picked up these, and I have yet to find time for them, but
Oh yeah, right.
the seven
Foundation
books.
books.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep. So I was excited to do it, but I just have not had enough time yet. So that's one of the ones on my to-do list. I try to sneak in a book here and there. One of my favorite Star Wars authors is Timothy Zahn, so I try to slip a Timothy Zahn book in, here and there. But I have to be careful because a lot of times I just get sucked in too much and it gets on the wayside.
I think our reading habits change as we do. All right, obviously as we mature and get more life experiences and see things you're talking about, Dave. The Lord of the Rings, and I was totally unfamiliar with that entire series until I was in the Army, and I was in advanced school after basic, and was in the barracks one afternoon on a Saturday. We didn't have training, and there was a guy sitting across from me in his bunk, and he's reading. And by then, I'd gotten familiar with Robert E. Howard and sword and sorcery stuff. But again, I was totally oblivious to the Lord of the Rings. So he's got this big book, right? And it's the first book in the trilogy. And I asked him, what he was reading, and he told me, and he showed it to me. Well, I took it, and I read like the first 2 or 3 pages, and I was like, "Huh?" The writing was so stilted to me. It just was dry. It was boring. I gave it back to him. He goes, "Oh, these are great." Well, yeah, if you think so, good for you. I mean, I'm going back to Ray Bradbury and Frank Hebert and all this stuff. Okay, so now jump ahead. 30 some odd years later. I've gone through the military, through Vietnam, come home, got married, got a college degree, blah 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 blah, and I find out Peter Jackson, one of my favorite movie directors, is making The Lord of the Rings. Okay, I'm in a bookstore and I see the trilogy, and I went, I wonder if I could actually read through this now. So I bought all 3, brought them home. Well, I'll be hanged. I did, and I enjoyed them. They were fun. They were really, and I saw what this guy had seen all those years ago. But I just, my 18-year-old self wasn't ready for that at all.
Right, I see that.
Okay, so now let's flip that around. When I was a junior in high school, one of the hot books for teenage boys, with their angst and whatever, was J.G. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah.
Okay, so I read that my junior year in high school, and I thought it was a fantastic book. I thought it was one of the greatest books ever written. I pick it up as an adult again, 30 years later, whatever, and within 2 chapters, I'm going, this is ridiculous. This is silly, dumb. Put it away. Okay, so again, it's like where you're at in your life is what books speak to you, right, and touch those experiences that you're having or had.
Yeah, a lot of them are experienced through people with the people that you're with. I never heard of or anything Hunger Games and stuff like that until my wife. My wife and my stepdaughter, they just loved it all this stuff. Movies and stuff like that. My wife's a big reader. She powered through them years ago. But I ended up having kind of a challenge because my stepdaughter needed to do a book report, and she decided that she wanted to do it on the Hunger Games. And so I'm like, all right, well, I will read it with you at the same time. So I would quiz her on it, but found out that there's a lot of stuff that she skipped through. I ask her point blank questions that you can't miss if you read the book. So, but anyways, I ended up reading that series. I never would have read that series. It just wouldn't have interested me. I'm a sci-fi, that
Right.
type. But I read the books and I really enjoyed them. And I wouldn't have had that experience if it wasn't for my wife. I mean, I hadn't even watched anything Harry Potter until I was married and, in this relationship. So she brought that to me.
It was my granddaughters that got me into Harry Potter. Both my granddaughters, right? I mean, I think I'm trying to remember if they were like 10 and 8 when the first book came out. And it's like, Gramps, you got to read this book. It's awesome. Hey, I want to be the favorite grandpa. All right. So I go pick up Harry Potter for no other reason. And then from that point on, we're hooked because every time a new book comes out, I'm getting a call from my granddaughters. Hey, the next book's out. You want to go pick some up? I go get my granddaughters. We go to the bookstore and we each get a copy of the next Harry Potter book. I've read all 7 of them because of the girls. And it was a ball. It was fun sharing that experience with them.
That's funny. My wife and my son were the same way with the Hunger Game books, but I feel my son started reading it first, and then my wife started reading it. Like I think that's the way it went. But they almost kept leapfrogging. Like my wife would get so far ahead, and then my son would get so far ahead. And at one point, I think the newest book, they were kind of sharing the book while they were reading. Like either the newest one or the last one before that. But yeah, they were. Like, are you done with the book yet? Like, no. All right, let me read it. Like, tag me in.
That's fun. Huh. Yeah, I actually read The Lord of the Rings probably every few years, and I loved the Hunger Games books, and I love the Harry Potter books, and I want to go back and read them. Like, I almost want to recapture the magic that I felt when I first read them, and I almost feel like I can't do it, and that makes me sad. But I'm also there's just the thought of I can't pick up the first Harry Potter book and say, well, I'll just read it and then that's all I need. I'm committing to a huge.
There you go.
And what's funny, even now, right now, I'm presently slowly making my way through the Dark Tower books by Stephen King.
Nice.
And the Expanse books.
Tim would be so happy for you or happy with you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So good. And the Dune books.
Those are fantastic.
I am halfway through all of these, and I'm like I'm not the kind of guy who's like, okay, I'm just going to start with book 1, and when it's over, I'll read book 2. I'm like, I got to spread them all out, which has the negative effect of, I'm going to finish all these, series in another 10 years. I'll be retiring and still trying to finish them. But they're so great. I just love reading them.
Oh, I mean, what you just said is obviously a topic that we should join with this as to those books that, mean something to us. And we actually do go back and reread. And you hit upon, one of my all-time favorites, and that's Dune. Dune came out when I was in high school, when I discovered science fiction, and people like Asimov and Robert Heinlein and a bunch of others, and there was so many great books. Dune was first serialized in Analog magazine, and I was getting a subscription by the time I was a sophomore, junior, to Analog, Worlds of If, Worlds of Tomorrow, whatever, aside from the paperbacks I was getting my hands on, like Edgar Rice Burroughs and others. But Dune comes out, and man, within 2 months, 3 months installments, they were supposed to install it in four monthly mags, four subsequent mags. It was larger than Campbell thought, the editor, and it went 5 issues before they wrapped it up. Okay, I love Dune. It blew my mind. So within 6 months of it being serialized in analog, they come out with the print edition. So I pick up a paperback copy of it and read it. Okay, then they made the movie, saw the movie, enjoyed the movie, the first one they made. Okay, fine. 6 months later, I'm in a bookstore and I run across a deluxe edition of Dune. All right, like $20, but this one's fully illustrated with paintings and this and that. And I'm flipping through it and I go, this is nuts. I've already got it. I've read it. No, I had to buy it. Brought it home, put it on the shelf. Sure enough, within 2 or 3 years, picked it up. Like you say, Brent, Dune is one of those books that every couple of years I have to pick up and read. And what intrigues me the heck about it is, again, life experiences, all right? But I find new things. It's like every time I read it, I see a new slant on the characters, on the environmental issues that Hebert was, addressing, which nobody had done in fiction before, all right, and used that platform for it. The whole concept of society and being interrelated with your environment, all this good stuff, right? That book drives me up a tree. It's absolutely fantastic. So I read a lot of books in serialized versions. Another one of those, which I absolutely loved, and I believe somebody out there right now, because as David was pointing out, Foundation has finally gotten filmed. It's on one of the streaming services now.
Apple TV, yeah.
Yeah, right. So one of my other all-time favorite Robin Heinlein books, and I have several of those, was his thing called The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. All right, which is about how the moon becomes like a penal colony in the future. And they've hollowed it out, and they basically use it to mine the asteroid belt and sent the ores and material. They basically mine the material and send it to Earth for manufacturing or whatever. But the people there don't have any representation on the Earth. So ultimately what happens is they decide to revolt, all of the founding fathers against, Great Britain. And the moon is going to revolt against Mother Earth for their liberty and their representative rights and all this good stuff. The book is amazing. It's absolutely fantastic. So 2 or 3 years ago, I'm in a bookstore and I see another edition of it. And I went, I wonder if that's as good as I remembered when I was a kid. Picked it up, brought it home, and read it last year, and absolutely loved it again. And then when I found out somebody's finally going to make a film version of it, thank you. It is It's an awesome read. It really is.
Okay, it's going to blow your guys' mind. I've never read Harry Potter either. But
that's okay, man.
But I don't like. It's not that I don't like. I'm not a fan of the genre just because it just doesn't appeal to me. But I have read almost every Edgar Rice Burroughs Barsoom book.
Oh,
wow.
I love those. Oh, do I love those. Yeah.
I read, I want to say the first 4 books on paperback, and physically read them. And then I think the paperback store near me went out of business or something, which was really sad because I love that story. Right. But then I found them online. So when I was working at the Walmart DC, don't listen. I would put headphones in while I was going through the freezer, counting stuff in the freezer, and I listened to almost the rest of the books. I think I'm missing 1 or 2, but I went through, just zoomed through them. And I'm the kind of person when people are like, "Oh, you don't retain it as well when you listen to it." I was like, oral storytelling, you retain a lot more than you think you do. You know what I mean? It used to be the way people communicated and told stories back in the day, and everybody remembered it.
Right.
So, but yeah, I retain a lot doing it that way. But like I said, it allows me to move and do things that I need to do without having to. I'd love to just sit there and pick up a book. I did it in high school, middle school, just sit there and hide in my room and read a book. But father of 5 children, 2 of them in college now. I don't exactly have a lot of time to read.
Yeah. I love reading, and it's
5 kids, 6 chickens, 4 turkeys. I don't have a lot of time.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
Right.
You're going to be able to do it, but then the turkeys finally
The turkeys.
seal the deal.
Oh yeah, I was almost there.
Yeah, I love reading, but I kick myself for how much I don't do it. Like,
Right.
I find that if I really want to read a book, I have to almost get away from my phone, get away from everybody, be in a place that's really comfortable with a drink that's close at hand. And, any one of those things can get knocked out. And I'm like, I can't read anymore. Why won't people just let me do what I want?
Right.
But
Yeah, I used to have music playing. It didn't matter if it was the radio station, as long as it's like low and just ambient noise in the background. You know what I mean? Ambient radio station or whatever. And I just zoom. I mean, but books, like I said, our theme is, learn from reading comics. Comics, novels, like comics. There are some comics that are like, when people write them, and obviously, Ron, Brent, you guys write stories. You guys put your own feelings, your own experience, your own life into them. And me as a reader, I feel that, you know what I mean? When I read a book and, something in it happens, when I read a comic book and something, bad happens, like when, was it Blackest Night? No, it wasn't Blackest Night. Was it when the sun went out for DC Comics and how Jordan came and had to reignite the sun? You know what I mean? That moved me. You know what I mean? I was like, whoa, right? When DC did their rebirth and brought Hal Jordan back, took him away from being Hal Jordan the Spectre and brought him back to life. That was moving. To me, it was the Martian Manhunter reading a mind in, I think it was the satellite. And he's like, I feel ego, like such confidence and ego. And then like, as soon as that happened, like, I'm like, oh. And then all of a sudden Guy Gardner came back and I'm like, dude, oh my God. Like, you know what I mean? It moved you. It the writings that you guys do. I mean, the artwork, yeah. I mean, I'm obviously people are gonna be partial to artwork, but man, the stories are gonna move you. They're gonna show you how to relate. They're gonna show you how to emote, just how to, I don't know, just be in touch with some of your feelings, whether it's anger or joy.
Well, I mean, I look back, you talk to people and ask them, who your favorite comic book writers are over the years. I mean, growing up in the 50s, I've talked a lot about, the variety of DC comics, and especially the war comics. And a lot of these are written by actual World War II veterans who came back home and got back to, making comics or whatever. And one of those, one of the most prolific at DC was Robert Conagher. And I mean, he wrote practically every one of their war titles, from Sergeant Rock and Easy Company to The Haunted Tank and all these others. And I can remember first time I picked up an issue of Enemy Ace. And that blew my mind because, I mean, it was a story of World War II aviation combat, right? But he was using a German pilot as his protagonist. And I mean, even as a 12, 13-year-old kid, I'm going, what? And he made the guy, likable and honorable and everything else, but he's like the enemy. All right. And even then, I mean, writers were pushing those kind of envelopes. So getting to the superhero stuff that, people doing at that time, you had people like Archie Goodwin, who, aside from being a great writer, was also a fantastic editor. And a lot of the books he edited were some of the best, superhero books out there. Mike Barr soon became one of my favorite writers when he created Camelot 3000.
Oh, it was great.
That whole concept of King Arthur and the knights being reborn in modern day England to fight off alien invaders. What the heck? It was insane. All right. It was just, I mean, it's just you begin to identify and know, like I said, who these writers are and the ones that you appreciate, the ones who are going to, bend things around. I mean, Alan Moore coming on the scene. All right. And who the heck is this guy? All right. And the big splash and promotion for Watchmen. And I'm like, what the heck is this? Hey, I tell you, after even reading that first issue and then the second, it blew my mind. I mean, I think more than any other writer up until this point basically said to the world, hey, you can do anything you want in a comic book as far as literature is concerned. Okay. And I mean, hey, don't sell your audience short. You can write great literary masterpieces as graphic illustrations, graphic, comics and novels. You can. It's just, what's gonna limit you? Your imagination, your talent. But if you have it, go for it. And I think that's whether people like Watchmen or not. My point is just that he opened that door and said, "Don't let anything restrict you. Just go out there and do it."
I thought Watchmen was a great comic.
Oh,
Fantastic comic. And I know people are like,
have you? I mean, I've got the $50 leather bound edition.
Oh, I don't have that, but I have the trade for it.
Let me.
I've got the trade.
One of the greatest things about that, Brent, is the back of it is like two of his scripts for the first couple issues.
Huh.
I mean, literally, he spends like 2.5 pages describing one panel.
Really, dude?
Oh,
you don't get the right to do that overnight.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I mean, talk about putting everything into that thing, including the kitchen sink. Holy smoke!
I'll tell you, was it Camelot 3000? I knew about the book, but when I found out about it, I was like, I couldn't find it anywhere until I went to art school, and our library was nothing. I got some tech books, some other books here and there, but there was just like several walls of just trade paperbacks, and they had the Camelot 3000. Oh man, it's one of the first books I checked out. It's like, oh my gosh, I get to finally read this. I knew what happened. I knew what was going on. You know what I mean? Doing my own personal research for it. But
years ago, I went to a con in Mississippi, and I learned ahead of time that Mike was going to be one of the guests there. So the one thing I made sure to pack was my graphic novel collection of Camelot 3000. Nice. And sure enough, I mean, walked into the lobby to register, and he happened to be there doing the same thing. Introduced myself to him. We got to talking, and a couple of days later at the show, I brought him my copy and said, please autograph this for me, which he kindly did. He's a great guy. He's an awesome guy. Yep.
That is awesome.
Oh, he created another series that I absolutely loved that he did for a smaller company, a mystery series called The Maze Agency, which was about a female private eye, and her boyfriend was like the sidekick. He was a local crime reporter. And I'm trying to remember if it was Eclipse or Comico that published that. And this was like the 80s when comics exploded, and we had all these little, B companies popping up every right and left. But the Maze Agency was phenomenal. It was great mysteries in every single issue, It was like Max Allan Collins doing Mystery.
I think I have either a couple of those. Like if they came in floppies, I want to say I have like one or something. I don't know how I got them. Maybe Roland gave them to me. I don't know. Heffa likes to give me books, like just toss me books, and I'm like, I didn't know what this was. I didn't even know this was a thing. I didn't I just from like the boxes, like he'll send me books stuff that we've worked on, books that I've worked on, and then some straggler stuff here and there. And it's like, man, I never even knew what this book existed. This is amazing. But there's a lot of older comics, because I feel how late in my life, which again, really high school is when I got into them. There's a lot of comics, like classic stuff I missed. You know what I mean? That is so nice that, like I said, Camelot 3000, to go back and like, oh, dude, I get to finally read this. You know what I mean? To go back and read Watchmen, to go back and, you know what I mean? Yeah, they're collected trades, but it's worth it. It's worth reading. And now since art school, I was telling my wife, I just recently bought the life of the Fabulous Killjoys, which is based off of My Chemical Romance. Gerard Way, and another writer collaborating on the books, right? But I've since learned that enjoy reading it, but I also kind of like to dissect it. Like, how did they lay it out? How did they plot the story? How did the paneling? How did the pages go? How did the sequence, go upon, in regards to like the story flow per page, the narrative, you know what I mean? I think
Yeah,
that's,
well, again, this is part of our theme tonight too, and I totally believe that, if you want to learn how to write anything, okay, please learn to read first. Be a ferocious reader, okay? Whether you're going to write prose or you're going to write comics, if you're going to write comics, then I would think maybe 80% of the people doing it today grew up being young comic book fans, because intuitively we love the media. So
right.
it's easy for us to adapt it, to understand it, all right? And that was never, clearer to me than years ago when I was working. I was at a con and I met an art teacher, a college art teacher, right, who wanted to try his hand drawing comics. Well, this guy was already in his 30s. He was teaching art. He was a gifted artist, right? I came home, wrote like an 8-page typical script for him, right? Full script, blah, 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 right? And sent it to him. He got it done, but he hated it because he wasn't satisfied with his art. It seemed stilted. I tried to explain to him that it is stilted. That's what comics are. There's no movement. That's an illusion the reader gets. But he couldn't grasp what the average comic book fan turned artist ultimately gets, intuitively, that storytelling of how to make panels flow, how to make the eye move and whatever. Well, that applies to us readers as well. I mean, yeah, I went to school, went to high school, went to college, took every English class I could get my hands on. But the majority of what I use in writing scripts is pretty much inherited from all those now thousands of comic books I've read in my life, because I was learning reading them. Didn't understand that, but I was
Right.
getting the whole concept of how comics work. And I apply that every time I sit down and write a new script.
Yeah. I remember reading a while ago, that someone was noting, some critic was noting that television had been going downhill. This is way before the streamers started happening, and they noted the reason was because the television writers of the day had grown up by watching television. That they were, therefore, their whole education was grounded in watching TV and then turning around and writing scripts. Whereas the TV writers of maybe the 70s, 60s, 70s had grown up, they had learned to write from television by reading literature.
Yep.
And that was, and there was a marked difference, not just because they understood the medium, but they understood how story worked, and how characters worked, and how to use theme, and how to use what people care about in terms to illuminating their characters and making you care for them. And I feel like that's something that when I think about comic book writing, I know when I'm reading a comic book that's very well written. I mean, I read comics all my life, but I remember when I read Watchmen, and it was funny because I think I read Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns for the first time in their entirety within like weeks of each other.
Wow.
And I remember going, I think I could read comics for the rest of my life. Versus some comics, even today, where I read them and I'm like, I don't know why I'm still sticking with this. You know what I mean? There are decent storytellers, there are decent writers, but I know when I'm reading something and I'm like, this person knows how to tell us.
Right.
Amen. Yep.
And I'm constantly looking for that. I feel like I love buying my floppies every month. I'll probably never stop doing that. But when I really get the good stuff is sometimes when I don't find out about it for years afterwards. And then, like, I didn't hear about Grendel until like maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
wow.
Dave, are you okay?
Yeah. Somehow, yeah, I'll survive. But it's weird.
It's like, don't get mad at Brent.
I saw like the first omnibus or something like that in a $5 trade paperback bin, and I'm like, oh, I've heard of this. This is like a superhero book, and I read it. And I'm like, whoa, this guy knows how to do something here. So I'm still kind of amazed. But anyway, so whenever I'm even thinking about writing a comic book, I have in my head voices that say, okay, try to make something that hasn't been done before, but also can resonate in a level that you have experienced in comics. And not necessarily copying that vibe, but also just trying to think with some level of depth. I love comics in part because, and Ron kind of said it earlier, comics they can be literature. They're not all going to be, but then again, sci-fi isn't all literature, but there's some that are truly incredible. Right. And comics are the same way. It's a different medium, and it really can investigate certain kinds of storytelling that you don't see other places. Whenever I see a movie that tries to copy, like I felt like, here's a terrible example, but when Daredevil came out, the one with Ben Affleck, the one everyone just loved, and there was the scene where Bullseye kills Elektra. I mean, they almost copied it panel for panel from Frank Miller. I remember thinking, I don't like this. I read the comic. This is not a comic. You should be telling this story from a filmmaker medium, understanding, not a comic book. It felt like he was parroting something. So what I want to, when I read a comic book that I think has some real depth, it's because someone has a grasp not just on panel composition, but they're going deeper. They're going into exactly what drives a theme, what makes a multi-layered story, why even a 6-page story about a simple thing can just have real consequence and gravity. I don't know. I guess that's just, I don't know if I've ever done it, but I think I've gotten close, and it's a great feeling when you're just writing something and you feel like, okay, I'm not just copying something. I think I might be trying something new. So
trying something new is good. Try something new, the reader's going to read something new. You know what I mean? Excuse me. Yeah. So
whether they buy it or not, or I mean, literally not just buy it, but I mean, buy it as in like, or if they look at me and they're like, I don't know about this one. I've gotten a couple of those looks before. So it's good for me. It keeps me from getting too big of a head.
I get surprised. I still get surprised sometimes when I'm at a convention and some fan will walk up to me and again, because of a lot of the earlier stuff that I did all those years ago. So they're adults now, right? But I get stories of, where they were at when they read, my comics, my comics, etc., whatever. But Brent, I think the most flattering thing that I've ever gotten, and it's only happened a couple times, but I've met several people who become creators themselves and attribute that to some of the comics that I wrote that they read when they were teenagers. And they'll come up and thank me for that.
That's pretty awesome.
And that's a humbling rush, let me tell you. All right. I mean, I'm just, I'm writing stories to entertain people. I'm hoping it's getting across. All right. But to think that, one gentleman writes, gaming modules now. And it's a great storyteller in his own right. Right. And another one became a television executive producer because, he just loves storytelling. So when you get that kind of feedback, it's like, wow, I hit the bullseye a couple times. That's really nice to know, Just, because I owe what I write to all the writers that I grew up reading, and not just in comics. It's what you're talking about. It's all our interests. We just spent almost an hour talking about all the the prose writers that we enjoyed as we were kids, and that filters into our comics. All right. I mean, I'm writing The Green Hornet, and that's a crime comic. Well, let me tell you, that played back off of a lot of the crime novels and mysteries I read at the same time, in high school. Ed McBain and his 87 Precinct novels were some of my favorite books of all time. I devoured those things, all right? How he used characters, how he made the narrative move by dialogue alone. The guy was a bloody genius. Try to mimic him? You bet I did. Any chance I could, and that all filtered into the comic book work as well. So, it's just a fun thing. It's storytelling is a blast. It's a ball. And hey, as long as I still get the, oomph and energy to do it, I don't think I'll ever lose the desire to do it.
All righty. Well, I just want to go back and touch base with what we said earlier at the beginning of the stream, that thank you to all the people that backed Cape Town. Thank you for the 103% funded, fully funded, and you will not be disappointed. It's a great story. You guys are going to love it. And if I can get this right, and we also want to take a second to share that Ron has a Kickstarter going on right now for Brother Bones Origin 1. 11 days.
11 days.
Looks like it's moving along pretty good.
We're past the halfway mark, which I'm tickled about, really. All right. That comes as a little surprise. And a joyous one at that. I can't thank, the people who've supported it thus far, but we've got to push. I'm doing another podcast tomorrow night, maybe a couple more over the weekend.
Nice.
And again, hey, thanks everybody for getting out there and supporting it.
Heck yeah. And you'll enjoy it. I enjoyed the art that Ron shared with me on it. And it's
Joe Arnold. Joe Arnold is the artist and the gentleman who put this all together for us. I can't thank him enough.
Heck yeah. So get in there. Now that you've helped fully fund Cape Town, get in there and help Brother Bones meet its goal, everybody.
Yeah, just go to Kickstarter, the Brother Bones Origin graphic novel. It'll take you right to the page.
And look, that's the image. Go to that image. It's a lovely image. All righty. We have been that Silverline show on Tuesday, which is funny. I just realized our little Silverline thingy on top says Silver Sunday.
I think it's been that way for a while, actually.
Yes, it has.
Oh, my good gravy. I did not switch that out. My bad, guys. It's been a long week.
Anyways, before we sign off, I want to say, hey, take care, gentlemen. I will see you in a month.
Have a great vacation, sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right. So catch Wednesday Wham at 9:00 and catch Silver Sunday at 8:00. And then catch us next Tuesday when we will have a subject that I have no clue what it is right now. So Tuesday at 11 Eastern, guys. Have a great night. And just like always, make mine Silverline.
Hi, I'm Dave Dorman. Make mine Silverline.